I'm looking for that kind of midday entry or something like that. And all I'm noticing is that every reversal for the whole week has been getting stuffed at VWAP. I better be selling at least half of my shares in a VWAP, right?
And it seems like if it lasts for a day, then it probably won't have your attention.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a dance like that these stocks play, and it's so predictable.
Most people that you see are just pumping a stock, whereas you're actually trying to explain the whole reason why even stock even is going to move or has potential to move, which is great, man.
There are going to be some predictable places where if I can just beat the rest of retail to them and then understand already what's happening fundamentally, it gives me edge.
So like where you have that excitement, that's where you should be selling, like you just said, which is awesome.
Of course they're dumping into retail. You and me and our cousin who were like, look at this, it's going to the moon. We are pawns and it should be illegal.
Welcome back to the show. Today's guest has been trading for over 8 years and he focuses on buying stocks. I know a lot of you have also seen me bring in people who focus on shorts, and you guys have requested, can you bring someone who buys and focuses solely on that? And today I brought Roland Wolf because that is what he does. So what's up, man?
How you doing? It's good to see you, bro.
Good to see you too. So I'd love to dive into, like, do you have kind of like a checklist that you go through in your head on what qualifies as a stock that you want to buy?
Yeah, actually it's usually, so my process is top-down stuff, so macro first. So I usually know going into a day if I want to be trading at all, you know? A lot of my time spent not trading. People kind of have a hard time coming to grips with that. But especially if you look at what I trade, which is mostly smaller cap stocks, they're really scammy. You know, they're really, really, really scammy, but tons of potential. Like we were just looking at it earlier. I mean, today we have a bunch of stocks ripping reverse splits specifically. Some of my old strategies I was able to create back in the day have come back to life over the last few years, specifically last few months. So it's kind of molded what I do, okay? So a lot of sitting around, but I know specifically going into each day about how aggressive I want to be. And what's that based on? It's pretty much just based on what happened yesterday. You know, are we in an environment where small cap stocks are running in the first place? I've always kind of just let the markets tell me what I need to do, you know? So I don't really try to fight it. If we have big runners like we've had recently, you're gonna see me more aggressive, you know? If, for example, last week we had big cap stocks running, you know, the overall markets were gapping way up each day, huge runs, and because of that, my scan was getting full of big caps for the first time all year. Seriously, for the last 6 months, my scan, and you've seen my scan parameters too, they're really low.
Mm-hmm. They're almost non-existent.
They're almost no parameters. I mean, yeah, that's my whole thing when people talk about proprietary scanning. I always kind of laughed at that because I'm like, it's kind of stupid. I run $50,000 volume, and that's pretty much it. 5%.
5%. I mean, basically everything.
I want to see everything that's moved. And I've done that for so long. And a big part of that is having my eyes in places earlier than everyone else. Mm-hmm. Everyone's waiting till it's already done $1 million in dollar volume or something like that, or $1 million in volume sometimes, you know?
Right.
On a $10, $5 stock, that's like $5 million volume, okay? And I've been watching it for a very long time already. Doesn't mean I'm trading illiquid stocks, but I do have my eyes on them. So what I'm trying to say with this is that I've been scanning in all year long. On this scan, it's only been small cap. Only small cap. I've not had a higher price stock on my scan very often this year.
Yeah.
Up more than 5%, you know what I mean? So it kind of tells a lot about the environment. And then last week, all of a sudden we had this big flurry and small cap got less tradable to the long side for me. There's less volatility, you know? Volume kind of got spread out. People were trading your big cap stocks again heavily. So a lot of what I do is just kind of dictated by the markets, and a lot of what I do is dictated on doing the opposite of what I started doing, and kind of using this idea of how terrible small cap is. People always dog on small cap that it's a scam, but they don't understand why. You know, they just say it because someone said it in The Wolf of Wall Street or something,
right?
You know? And they think about like Atlas, pump and dumping, like the pump and dumpers. Those guys, honestly, were insignificant in my book compared to literally the companies that I trade, okay? Those guys, if you look at the money they made, there are big time institutional banks, your H.C. Wainwrights and some big proper institutions that run offerings on these small cap companies, and they're essentially pump and dumping. You know, we look at the life cycle of a stock, what I trade, and that life cycle is pump. They put out a PR, they dump, right? They're gonna dilute, they're gonna make the share count bigger. That's how they make money to survive.
Yeah.
You know, put yourself in their shoes, right? If you had to survive, if you had employees to pay, what are you gonna do? The only way to extract money from the markets, if you're like a one drug biotech, is to pump and then dump, right? So that's what they do. They give shares to an institutional investor, half price or whatever, you know? And a lot of these deals this year have been so toxic. What's toxic? Well, they do convertible deals where basically these institutions get more and more and more shares the cheaper the stock goes. So there's kind of a conflict of interest. They want it to go lower so they can pile on shares, right? It's kind of a crazy phenomenon. And what I've noticed, then they run them from like 10 cents. They've been taking them all the way down, these proper stocks, man. On my scan last week, there were more than 600 proper listed stocks trading under $1 a share. Think about that. That's so many, I mean, companies, right? And so that's kind of what I noticed. And a lot of my trading to the long side has a lot to do with macro stuff like that. Okay. So understanding that this is the process, they're going to run it down. The share count, their outstanding shares get way bigger, so they can't actually move because they're not a low float anymore. And then they're going to have to do a reverse split again, right? Reset the cycle. So the reverse split, they're going to be, maybe their share count now is like 100 million shares. They do a 10-for-1 reverse split. Now they're back down to 10 million shares, and their price gets back over $1 so they can maintain compliance with NASDAQ because they have to stay over $1. So it's this whole game, man. And then, as they get towards $1, the strategies I've been playing recently again, you see them pump because they got to hold a buck for 10 days. It's a beautiful thing. It's a dance like that these stocks play, and it's so predictable. You heard me kind of talking earlier to some of my students and stuff like that, who literally, we had PXMD today go from 3 to 10 overnight, right? And I did a webinar all on this subject with my students yesterday on how, because LIFW yesterday went berserk, huge run, it's going to create some sort of opportunity somewhere. And that's what I live for.
Yep.
That's where I make my most money, is not necessarily the black swan, but the product of that. There are going to be some predictable places where if I can just beat the rest of retail to them, and then understand already what's happening fundamentally, it gives me edge, from a swing trading perspective. So I have a bunch of students who were long PXMD last night, at 3, and woke up to 100% gain at 6, and some of them were selling it at 9. You know what I mean? And they didn't have to trade any price action today. And that's what I was saying. I'm like, do you guys feel kind of like an insider?
Yep.
The whole point is that there aren't very many places in the stock market for me where I can predict a PR. It's a really cool phenomenon.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a ton of them that don't, but most of them have this MO. It's a big picture thing. And that's something I realized back in 2017. This strategy was born, a long time ago. And then it went away in 2021 because there were no penny stocks because the markets got so inflated. You know what I mean? So we're talking about cycles of markets now too. So in other words, there were times where this strategy went away completely. And then there were times where it's back in full force.
There were no reverse splits?
There were none because there were no stocks under $1. No stocks under $1, no need to reverse split. They're all maintaining compliance with NASDAQ. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea there, man. It's a very powerful scenario. And I've kind of taken that mantra once I realized that I can find a why for my longs.
Cobra Trading is the go-to broker for day traders and short sellers. And I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, Benzinga awarded Cobra Trading as the go-to broker for short selling. They have a heavy focus on direct market access order routing, so you have the fastest execution. They have some of the best locate prices and availability. They also have amazing customer service. I've experienced many different brokers, and it's why I use them every single day and why I'm proud to have them as our sponsor. Sign up now by clicking the Be the Trader referral link below and earn 1 free month of software with Cobra and 25% off all commissions. Now let's get back to the show. So your checklist is basically like, I want to find the macro.
Yeah.
Understand the macro, the reason behind what could potentially happen because you've seen it over time.
Yep.
Which is a reverse split play in this example. And then from there you just develop, like, do you have a checklist after that in terms of like anything around that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, obviously. Like I said, last week, I wasn't doing this. I wasn't looking for splits so much. You know, last week I was trading kind of bottom bouncing cheaper stocks. So I've noticed that momentum, it comes in price ranges. So for example, TPST a couple weeks ago went from 20 cents to $10 in one day, which if you think about that is nuts, right? 20 cents to 10 bucks.
Insane. What is that? Like
with volume, with a ton of volume. It's not like a little bit of volume. It was like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars pouring through stock.
A lot of shorts got
destroyed
that day,
unfortunately. And I don't pray for anyone's downfall. It sucks.
Nope.
You know, I've been squeezed. I always feel bad for when
but
that
it's
happens.
important to say because people need to know, like, you can lose it all. Like, this is very risky. This is definitely very risky.
Super risky. That being said, there are ways to de-risk. And the de-risking for me has always come through having good macro ideas. You know, can I buy this stock today and come back in a week and I'm okay? You know what I mean? And in small cap,
there's not many you can do
There's
that.
not many you can do that, right?
Yeah,
it's true, man. It's not. There's not too many scenarios like that. So they've been really powerful this year. Especially, I think the last time we spoke, man, I was on the back of, I had just started to emerge from some of the worst trading in my career.
Yeah.
You
What
know?
was that?
Markets, I mean, 2022, you know, was rough. Down.
Splits weren't working at that time, or they weren't showing up?
They weren't showing up yet, but in retrospect, and you know, I've had some students point out some of my old webinars, kind of not to call what was happening in the future, but basically I said that this was happening. Everything needed to die, and I'm actually kind of happy. Small cap's going to reset. Everything's going to reset. I didn't know it would reset so hard and for so long, but it makes sense when you look back at what happened, you know, post-pandemic and the overall markets. So, you know, process-wise, that's what I didn't really notice. Overall markets affect small cap until that period of time. What
do you mean by overall market affects the small?
So process-wise, so I do have an A through Z trading process every day. And it's not just every day during trading. This is all day, every day.
Okay.
Going through my mind. If something's happening macro, it's part of trading process for me. I need to know what's going on in the world. I need to know how the markets are moving.
How does that impact your decisions, though, when it comes to small cap? Because typically you hear that small cap kind of is irrelevant to the big cap market.
It's not to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's but they move in specific ways. So sometimes they diverge to where overall markets, when they're weak, you'll see small cap get heavy, or you'll see small cap get hot. And here's the thing, it's not all of small cap. This is the thing people have to understand. It's a small set of small cap stocks. You know what I mean? Like a sector, exactly. Like a few plays here and there that spur on a few plays here and there, and I am always on those few plays.
You mentioned earlier you said that you know, sometimes it's 20 to 40 cent stocks, and then I think I took you off of a tangent there, but was there other, like you said, that it sometimes can be in price range, sometimes it can be in float range, like
price range, float ranges, you know, catalyst sector,
like AI.
If it's a biotech, it's like if a biotech goes nuts today, I should only be looking at biotechs on my scan in the morning tomorrow. And if it's if a $3 bio, we have something that, and I'm talking about the top percent gainers, what gets people emotional, you know? If it's a biotech that goes from 3 to 20 today, that's going to be an emotional move for a lot of people. Everyone's going to be looking for the next one. What's it going to be? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a $3, $4, or $5 biotech with news. You know, and people can kind of overcomplicate that process.
Yes.
But they
try to look for more than just that.
Exactly.
Like they try to just make it,
And then conversely, if I look at my scan and there's nothing up even 50% today, you know, I shouldn't be trading very aggressively. Looking for more. It doesn't mean that I can't trade aggressively. It means I need to just check my perspective. And if I can just make my perspective be in the right ballpark, man, that's what I've spent a lot of time trying to teach people to do. It's not even the patterns. It's not even like the trading itself. It's actually, for me, a big part of my success this year has been the big picture, and then management of myself and when I'm trading and when I'm not trading, and my size and my frequency of trades. Like, The closer when I get to the charts and my perspective and the charts are moving to where I think they're going to be moving a lot, that's the time for me to be pressing as hard as I can. And then when they're not, I need to do the opposite. And this year, the markets have been schizophrenic for me. We were talking about this too, remember? Yeah. But for me, if we get back to the correlation between overall markets and small cap, they've diverged this year. When the overall markets, SPY, the Qs have been kind of strong, it's gotten kind of weak. It's gotten kind of weak for small cap, and vice versa.
What's interesting is you're so flexible. Like you just, it just seems like what you're saying is mostly. Well, how would you describe your style? I don't want to put words. So how would you describe it?
Oh my gosh, a lot of adapting day to day. Very process driven. That I have a very flexible process. Man, the long game takes a lot more creativity than a lot of people think. And a lot of my best strategies were born of that creativity,
Shorts as a whole is like stats, like
stats,
70% of them
stats,
fail. Okay.
And when it gets here and you risk here, and the best shorts are the most patient. Yep. Some like backsides, some like parabolics. All of you are in danger all the time, in my book.
Yeah, in danger.
And that's the whole thing for me. And I've done short selling, and actually short selling, I'm tremendously accurate with my short, way more accurate than my longs. I find, and we'll talk more about risk, but I find with the longs, due to the nature of the scamminess of the companies, I have zero FOMO when they run. Okay, a lot of people, that's the one thing people struggle with in my experience the most. They buy through highs of day.
Yes.
They chase through breakouts. They buy breakouts in the fucking first place. I hate breakouts. All these areas like that, that's where they buy. That's where they're told to buy. It's all they know. That's where if I had 1 million shares to dump on a company and I was HC Wainwright, that's where I'm getting rid of them. You need liquidity to get rid of that much. If these companies are dumping, they need that liquidity.
100%.
So where else are they going to dump? Of course, they're dumping into retail. You and me and our cousin who were like, look at this, it's going to the moon. that we are pawns and it should be illegal, I think. But that's what makes it so powerful, is that once you understand that, you don't have to be the person getting dumped on anymore.
Nope.
In fact, the reason it's not a scam, the only reason that these people aren't going to jail over this is because they tell you they're doing it. Ahead of time, it's in the filings.
Oh, but no one's going to read that.
No one's going to read that. Exactly. But now we have tools like Dilution Tracker, which I was showing you, that I use all the time now. That's just like, there's no excuse. It's actually not expensive, and I'm not being paid by them in any way. Yeah. But
you showed me that tool today too.
It's part of my process. It's part of my process. Yep. I'll get pretty accurate share count, at least for the most part. I can see all where, when, how they're going to dump, how many. They tell you this, man. Yep. So it's on us, and they just bank on the fact that we're not going to do it, just like you said. Because back in the day, you'd go on I'd have to go through the 10 Qs. I'd go through earnings reports and stuff like that, and go through the filings.
Control F, W.
Yeah, Control F, do all that stuff, and you had it was 5-10 minute process. 20-minute process sometimes to get through
play.
And everything, and the filings are legal mumbo jumbo, a lot of it. I was lucky because I worked in a law firm for a long time, so I kind of spoke lawyer, I guess you could say. But for most people, they're like, screw this, but it's important. There's that's one thing that can set new traders apart that are trying to go long. That's one thing right off the bat. If you just know where these people are dumping, what is that? It's excess supply, right? Yep. And we're playing a supply and demand game. We need places where there's demand. Yep. So that leads me to places like, where do shorts cover? There has to be demand there, when it's low. There are some of these deals, some of these financings where, these institutions are short selling the stock. It's kind of crazy. It's a conflict of interest. They want the stock to go lower so they can load more shares, and they're dumping when they run them. It's so crazy, dude.
It is.
But in certain times in that stock period's life, they have an incentive to pump, and at certain times they have an incentive to dump, and it's just up to you to see what part of the life cycle they're in, and then put that together with overall markets.
It just seems like for your style too, like you constantly need to be aware of what's moving. So it's always shifting. It could last for weeks, a month, or it could just last for a day. Totally. And it seems like if it lasts for a day, then it probably won't have your attention. Because you'll look for it the next day, and if you don't see anything else moving with that type of background, if you will, whether it's float, price, or news, then that day you're going to be kind of lax that day. It's going to be a relaxed day. You can spend time with your family. I know that's something you like to do. So you really, like as I mentioned earlier, it's like your whole premise is macro. And you actually, described it very, very vividly. So everyone who's watching, you need to rewind this because he just gave you just the best information. So definitely rewatch this part. But I'm very curious, even though you're teaching this and you show people like macro, what have you found is the next most common mistake that they make when they're trying to go this way and think macro?
Yeah, the problem is that a lot of things that I teach, when I do boot camps and stuff, or a lot of times people will have like a light bulb moment. Because what I try to teach people is how to buy low, okay? How to actually just buy low and sell high. And a lot of that involves selling to areas that you used to think were areas that you should buy at. So this total rewiring, in other words, of when we get excited.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When I want to be letting those impulses take over. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Because everyone, it's always like, oh, it's going through highs, it's going through highs, it's going through, like, that's where I'm supposed to buy it because it's going up. And then, yeah, it's the complete opposite for me. The lower it goes, the more value I'm going to potentially have on my trade once it does reverse. That's the whole premise for me. Being a contrarian, literally being the opposite,
Yep.
And not just being the opposite, but having a reason to be the opposite. I want to be the dumper. I want to be, if H.C. Wainwright are selling 1 million shares at a level, so do I. That is where I need to sell shares.
Yep.
Does that
or
make
not
sense?
Be buying.
Because guess who else understands that? Really good short sellers will understand what's happening there, and they'll be watching price action very carefully, like sharks. And those are people with the biggest accounts for retail traders, hedge funds. If they're dabbling, for the most part, with small cap, they're dabbling short. When they run too much. From my eyes, what I've seen in the filings over the years. So so all of those things kind of combine to this discipline for me now. Yeah. That has changed a lot. A lot of it's perspective, but a lot of it is just understanding I'm going to be nailing these stocks near their lows. With the only place that it makes sense for me to on reversals where shorts are going to be covering when they're profitable already. We're always looking for squeeze. If you're long, short squeeze. Oh, it's going to squeeze. It's going to squeeze, and everyone wants to be buying the squeeze. You know what I mean?
They want to be, right when it starts to squeeze, they want to be
That's
buying.
where they want to be in.
Yep.
I sell some there.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah, I know you are. I know you are.
I love
it. I just love that.
And if it's a breakout, if it's a morning play, whatever it is, wherever people think they're supposed to be buying, I'm selling some there. That's my whole goal, and that's what I try to teach.
It's like
because
wherever you used to experience emotion, and because when you're new at this game, what do? Like you said earlier, you're buying the highs. You're selling when it goes lower. Like that. You're just emotion everywhere. And so, like, if you've experienced that, which we all have, then I can remember that experience, and you just do the opposite. So, like, when you have that excitement, that's where you should be selling, like you just said, which is awesome.
It's kind of crazy, and oftentimes it goes higher, and but it doesn't matter. I always scale out.
How do you deal with that though? Like, because some people say that.
I just scale out. That's the only secret I have to patience. People are like, oh wow, the patience. Like, nah, just patient with some shares. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like. Especially the way I look at these now, and I've been much more systematic with just profit taking all year. The discretion comes in how much, okay? So and that comes from how strong are the markets? How close am I to the pattern that's been super fruitful?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if that's the case, so in other words, if I'm playing a morning reversal or a midday reversal on a morning gapper, first green day gapper with news, and I'm looking for that kind of midday entry or something like that, and all I'm noticing is that every reversal for the whole week has been getting stuffed at VWAP. I better be selling at least half of my shares in a VWAP, right? And de-risking there as much as I can, locking in there. So I'm a big advocate. So I buy in weird places where I end up with 1 to 3, 1 to 5 to back to VWAP, man. Like when it's super weak, by the time people understand it's a play in the afternoon, I'll be up 30, 40% sometimes because of kind of that foresight and understanding also how the algorithms have been working this year. I've got a pretty decent grip on that, on how to trade them, at least from my perspective, and stay safe to the long side. That's all.
And I know people probably hear this and they're saying like, okay, but how often are you wrong though when you're buying in areas that no one's even really paying attention to?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time.
How do you deal with that?
Some weeks though, not at all. Some weeks I'm on point, where, and it's not that no one's paying attention to them. It's that novice longs are not paying attention. You know who is paying attention? That short seller who's still in their position, waiting to cover through lows and waiting. They're waiting for new lows and they're waiting for new lows. And now it's midday. They've been sitting around. You know who else is paying attention? The guy who was also shorting the weakness.
Yep.
Who shorted the breakdown of VWAP, and he's waiting for lower. So that's the whole premise behind.
And the guy who shorted the crack.
The crack. All those guys, you know, just like, and I think about that, just macro, just like longs are risking the last dip and risking the next dip.
Yeah.
And that keeps me with this beautiful lately range in which to risk. So high a day, when I deem low a day to be set, that's it. You know, obviously VWAP, if VWAP's here, high a day, pre-market highs, and this is very general, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's how I'll map out my price targets. And all of those are areas where guess who's buying it? The FOMO people again. Again, you know, it's back towards high day. It's back. They're buying. They're going to risk the last dip.
It's going to go higher.
It's going higher, you know, like, and then guess what I do? I sell back into the highs again, you know? And then if it rips, maybe I got some shares left for tomorrow, maybe. That's the whole goal. So super positional, you know, I'm very positional with what I do. Another big part of this for me has been margin of error, which I never even thought about before with my trading or teaching, but with the teaching especially has been amazingly helpful, which is when my trade doesn't get to high a day, my third target, it doesn't matter. I've taken some off at my VWAP or I've taken some off at level 2. And it's de-risked that trade. So actually my winning percentage has gone up recently.
Yep.
Now that I've kind of done it a lot this year. But there's just a weird margin of error there where you don't have that on breakouts, on high day breaks. If you're wrong, sometimes immediately, dude, sometimes you're buying the top.
Yep.
Oftentimes, a lot of times. Most times, at least the temporary top. It doesn't mean it's the top for the rest of the day, but right now, if it's through highs, most times it's going to pull really hard, okay? And so there's not really a margin of error. In fact, it's the opposite. It's so hard to stay in that position and then take advantage of the strength.
Yep, it's so hard because you've already been down and it's mentally exhausting.
Dude, psychologically fucked.
What I really love is the whole idea that you brought up earlier is short sellers. And you keep on saying, like, I'm thinking about the guy who just cut, you know, just in a short here, in a short there, in a short there. Would you say, like, did you learn short selling for, like, when did that come into play? Because, like, obviously you know it. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be thinking about them, right? So I think that's very important for you to explain because I know a lot of traders might be like, I'm just going long. Why do I need to care about that?
Yeah, so I don't think about them. I think about them throughout all my trades. No shorts, no squeeze. Always. That's been my thing. If there are no shorts there's no squeeze. If there are no shorts, it's just a bunch of idiot longs pumping together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Buying an asset together. So the biggest moves are created by the big shorts that are shorting at these levels, and they have to cover. And if people who haven't been squeezed don't understand what that feels like. It's a out of control panic. And then at any point, depending on what your account size is, your broker calls it in. You have no choice. You're done. So that's what you'll see. Brokers trigger off and huge squeezes. So for me though, the short selling has just been, it was trading tickers. It was trading
Shout
tickers.
out Singletani.
Shout out TG, the GOAT.
Yep.
And, I've been shouting this on the mountaintops literally since I watched that thing because...
Dude, me too, man.
He
changed just perspective.
It's what I aspired to be too, was that, like a badass short seller for a long time, until I got squeezed for the first time, honestly. I was running a 90% click short selling this month. Not this month, but years ago.
Yeah.
And I was doing great short selling and just on top of the world. When I short, I get very aggressive, bro. It's weird. I still understand risk reward and stuff, but I just get more mean and aggressive and bigger size and bigger size. Like I want to smash shit, you know what I mean? Like Hulk. And then I took a $40,000 loss one day on a $500 position on a 500 share position of like a $5 stock is where I started shorting it. And then I was down 40 G's somehow. You know what I mean? It was it was stupid. It was very stupid. It went to like, I would have, if I didn't cut there, I would have been down 100. Within another hour past that. Next day I would have been profitable as shit, but but that's short selling. So once you understand that dynamic of what that is, it's just the opposite of us.
Yep.
Think about every spot that, if you're new, every spot that you think you should buy and you're buying, and then you root for it to go up, there's someone else on the other end of that rooting for it to go down. Yep. And in our markets, those someone else's are the biggest account holders. We know this, just being in the industry, we understand.
Most people are short sellers, like
most successful who have any longevity whatsoever.
Yep, exactly. That's better correction. Thank you.
There aren't too many people slinging around too much size to the long side. I feel, and I know there are some, and that's something I've even struggled with.
Long is also very creative, like you said earlier. It's just different type of trader. It's a whole different type of trader. I don't care who you are. And people who trade long enough, they even claim themselves, I'm a long bias, I'm a short bias. There's very few who say, I could do both. And
I could.
Yeah.
I could. No, I could set, and I'm going to. Actually, I'm starting shorting again this year.
Okay, cool, bro.
I'm going to because I see that I'm going to.
Yeah.
Okay. I am a very accurate short seller when I short. I'm going to have a set of rules in place this time that don't allow me to lose $40,000 in the trade.
Yep.
Granted, I was up like 60 that month, so it wasn't the worst thing. And I remember kind of feeling like a rite of passage, like nice, big ass loss, just like all my heroes pretty much at the time. But still, not anymore. I don't ever want that. And that's, all my trading is based off of the lowest possible risk to the highest possible reward, man. And people dog on it. Some people dog on it like, oh, well, you got to be super accurate, or not super accurate, but it's actually the opposite. You don't have to be accurate at all, really.
Yeah.
If your risk is low enough, the way I trade with these stocks, I can cut a lot.
Yep.
That being said, I don't, because the second I hit 2-3 losses on a setup, I'm not trading it anymore.
Oh, okay.
If we're talking discretion and how quickly I adapt, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's day to day, just like you said before. You were mentioning day to day, week to week, month to month, whatever the markets are going to give me. So when I have my finger on the pulse of a pattern, a strategy is set up in a market, I just hit it for all it's worth while it's there. It'll usually culminate in a loss or two as I start to press it harder and harder on that pattern, usually a decent sized loss or something like that. These days, because of how the markets have been so choppy, the second that loss comes, and I've been expecting something because I've been seeing it happen every day, the second that doesn't happen, even if I didn't trade it, I'm just slam the brakes, man. And it's been the most amazing year of adaptation because of that.
So
I'm never fighting it, man. And I'll watch my scans go from 100, 200% gainers every day, and I'm nailing them to 30% gainers. And guess what I do during that period? Nothing.
Yep.
I just sit around. I maybe have a couple swing trades here and there and work some of my other ideas, whatever the best plans I can find those weeks are. And then yesterday, for example, people can go, I don't know what's the date today. Holy,
I don't know.
What
7th
is it?
today?
That's a blur,
it's
man.
It's the 7th.
7th, yeah. So, if you go to my YouTube from this last week, from yesterday, dude. Is yesterday Monday? Yeah.
No, Tuesday.
Is today Tuesday?
Today's Wednesday.
Oh my God.
No, today's Tuesday.
Is today Tuesday?
We're above dumb.
Monday. If you go back to
the blind leading the blind.
Yeah,
right
no, we're good.
It's Tuesday.
It's a good combo, bro.
Yeah,
it's a good combo.
I enjoy it.
It's chill. No, but if you go back to yesterday, I did a YouTube live where dude, I was sitting on my hands, because of what happened. We were talking about it last week. The markets were up and up and up. The overall markets were gapping big, and I had so many stocks on my scan. Everything got really spread out for me. So I was anti-trading this Monday coming into the week. And LIFW was kind of creeping up and nothing would look great on my scan. So of course I'm I'm not really going to trade anything. And then an hour later, LIFW is 500% up. Okay.
Yep.
I was about to take a shower and I jumped on a webinar. I'm like, everyone, this is really important time. Normally I would just be by myself and I would just be doing this process. But what I've been trying to do is transmit this to people, which is kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the creativity, and this isn't even so much creativity, but this is a part of process for me of finding what's going to move next. And when I need...
That's your skill, bro.
And when I need to do that.
You got to bleep that out.
You know what I mean?
The part.
Yeah. No, but that is... So I immediately got on with my people. I have no shirt on. I was like, you guys, I'm really sorry. Impromptu webinar because I'm about to go through process.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's what's important to me as a teacher, is how can I relay the process to people?
Yeah, bro. And I watched you do that today, and I'm just hats off to you. I really appreciate how real you are and how you just share what you know. And everyone can see it just even here. What you're sharing now is just stuff that people don't really talk about. You don't really see people on free sources sharing long bias setups or ideas. and that actually makes sense other than pumping it, right? Like most people that you see are just pumping a stock, whereas you're actually trying to explain the whole reason why even stock even is going to move or has potential to move, which is great, man. But
No,
let
I
me ask you this.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. So like, let me ask you this, man. If people want to learn more about you, how can they find you, find out more?
Just on YouTube, man. Roland Wolf. Just search Roland Wolf. Instagram, social, Twitter is Roland Wolf 86. It's the only one. I have 1 million people pretending to be me.
Yeah.
I think maybe more than anyone in our space, there are Roland Wolfs,
Really?
man. Yeah, dude. If you search Roland Wolf on Instagram, there's like hundreds of them, man. But Roland Wolf 86 is the only one, and here on YouTube's the best spot, though.
Awesome, bro. Good having you, man.
It was great speaking with you, bro.